Hello, everyone, and welcome to Virtuosity. I'm Corey, co-founder of Virtuosity, and I'll be your lead facilitator for the Whole Engineer program. I'm joined today by two exceptional colleagues and co-facilitators. Mary is co-founder of Virtuosity, a distinguished professor of strategic leadership, and a leading voice in character. Olga is the founding department chair of engineering at Wake Forest University and a leading voice in engineering education. This program is built around a simple but critical insight. Engineering failures are rarely purely technical. More often, they are failures of judgment, rushed decisions, arrogance, complacency, the dismissal of feedback, or blind spots around ethics, safety, and responsibility. These are not competence problems, they are character problems. Engineering faculty see this tension every day. The challenge is not whether character matters, but how to intentionally cultivate it in ways that strengthen, rather than compete with, technical rigor. That is exactly what this program is designed to do. In the Whole Engineer program, we equip engineering faculty with evidence-based tools they can immediately apply in their own teaching contexts. By the end of the program, each participant will have designed a customized, mission-critical intervention, one that strengthens their teaching, advances course design, improves student learning, and supports the development of engineers who are not only technically excellent, but also responsible, collaborative, and ethically grounded. With that framing, let's begin. So Olga, the title of the program, The Whole Engineer, is named after a term you coined. When we talk about educating the whole engineer, what problem are you actually trying to solve in engineering education?
Thanks, Corey. What a great question. When we began talking about educating the whole engineer in building Wake Forest engineering, the core problem we were trying to solve was really a flourishing problem for students, for the engineering profession, and for society. Engineering education is very good at transmitting technical knowledge, but far less intentional about supporting students to flourish as humans, preparing graduates for the realities of modern practice, or asking whether engineering as a profession is equipped to serve society's most complex challenges. So these three forms of flourishing are inseparable. If students move through engineering programs exhausted, disengaged, or disconnected from meaning, that does not lead to flourishing engineers. And engineers who lack judgment, ethical grounding, or the ability to work across human and societal systems ultimately undermine societal flourishing, even if they're technically excellent. Further, in practice, engineering is never just about equations or code. It's about judgment under uncertainty, working with people, and making decisions that affect public safety, communities, and the environment. Yet we often educate students as if technical correctness alone is enough. At the same time, the problems engineers are being asked to solve today, health systems, infrastructure, climate change, AI, equity, are fundamentally different than in the past. These are socio-technical, deeply human problems that require not just technical skill, but judgment, adaptability, humility, and moral responsibility. So educating engineers for the future meant that we needed to redesign programs, not for the engineer of the past, but for the engineer of the future. We had to rethink competencies engineers need and how we must educate the future engineer. Technical content and lectures alone were not enough to prepare students for this complex real-world practice. So this is why we intentionally bridged theory and practice by integrating projects and experiential learning in every course, not just capstone. Students had to grapple with ambiguity, multiple viable solutions, stakeholder constraints, and real consequences. We moved away from one correct answer problems to make the complexity of engineering practice visible. So ultimately, educating the whole engineer is about alignment, aligning competencies and pedagogy, theory and practice, student growth, and societal impact, so that engineering education becomes a pathway not just to technical proficiency, but to human and societal flourishing. And this mindset shift is needed across our education, not just engineering education.
And Olga, in your experience, where does engineering education most often fall short when it comes to judgment and professionalism?
There are a few consistent failure points I have seen over my 30 years in engineering education, as a student, as an educator, and as a higher education leader across many different institutions. First, we often work within outdated and inflexible curricula that were designed for an engineer of the past, not the engineer of the future. So even though ABET student outcomes explicitly emphasize professional skills like teamwork, communication, ethics, and lifelong learning, many programs still over-prioritize technical coverage at the expense of integration. The result is curricula that signal those outcomes matter, but do not structurally support them or cultivate these skills and competencies well. Second, students rarely get to practice real judgment. Most problems they encounter have clean boundaries, one correct answer, and no real consequences. But real engineering problems are messy. They involve trade-offs, incomplete data, uncertainty, and competing stakeholder values. So without repeated exposure to that complexity, students' judgment muscles remain underdeveloped. Third, professionalism and ethics are often outsourced to a single course across an entire 4-year curriculum. So we treat ethics as content to be covered rather than a capacity to be cultivated over time. Students may memorize the code of ethics, but they're not practicing how to speak up, how to disagree respectfully, how to handle pressure, or how to take responsibility when things go wrong. Fourth, team experiences are often assumed to just work. We place students in teams, rarely the diverse interdisciplinary teams they will encounter in real engineering practice, but we do not teach them how to navigate conflict, accountability, power dynamics, or failure. So when teams struggle, as they inevitably do, students may complete the project, but they do not necessarily learn how to become better collaborators or leaders. And finally, our assessment systems often reward performance over integrity around learning. When grades, metrics, and outcomes matter more than learning and reflection, students quickly learn how to game the system rather than to develop sound professional judgment. So taken together, these points are not about lack of standards. They're about a misalignment between what we say matters and what our curricula and pedagogies cultivate.
And one more question for you, Olga. Why isn't technical excellence alone enough to address these issues?
Yeah, technical excellence is essential, but it's not sufficient. Every major engineering failure you can think of, whether it is a bridge collapse, a software breach, a medical device failure, rarely happens because someone did not know the math. It happens because of poor judgment, misaligned incentives, silence, overconfidence, or ethical compromise. So these are not technical failures, they're failures of character and judgment. Engineers are constantly making decisions where the technically possible conflicts with the socially, ethically, and humanly responsible. Without character, things like integrity, humility, courage, practical wisdom, technical skill can become dangerous. If we want engineers to flourish as professionals and for society to flourish as a result, we have to move beyond technical training alone. That means intentionally integrating character development into everyday engineering learning and everyday engineering decisions. Through experiential learning, cognitive apprenticeship, situational judgments, and structured reflection, students begin to develop not just skills, but discernment. They start to see themselves not simply as problem solvers, but as professionals accountable for real-world impact. So ultimately, the goal is not just to produce capable engineers. It is to graduate engineers who can flourish in complexity, who can sustain trust within teams and communities, and who can use their expertise wisely in service to the public good.
And now, Mary, over to you. Many people hear character and they think values, personality, or ethics. From your research, what is character actually?
Well, and first I wanted to say, Olga, I loved hearing the case that you're making for character. And I think that a lot of people go, yes, but don't we already do this? It's a little bit like the problems that you're raising around ethics and values. Like if we just have the right values, we'll get there. And if we just understand ethical decision making, we'll get there. And perhaps for engineers, this analogy would be helpful. I wrote this piece around the aerodynamics, character as the aerodynamics of leadership, in which I described it the way we've been treating or maybe going after character is like the early days of flight, trying to flap our wings, looking at birds and saying, well, that's what it takes to have good judgment. And what we're really picking up here, which I think should be appealing for listeners, is character has engineering to it. There's nothing soft about this. In the same way I picked up, it's not just equations or code, it's judgment and choice. Well, character has a way that we need to understand it, and it's not just subjective or not something that can be developed. So, Corey, the way I would think about this is there are two sides of this engineering of character. One is the architecture of character, and the fact that in our case we look at 11 dimensions, that they can have strength can operate in a vice state. So people often don't think about that. How can integrity operate in a vice state? So the architecture of character itself has its own engineering, and we need to equip ourselves with an understanding of that engineering. The second part is character development has its own engineering. And, we've been relying on a lot of learning theory for development. And it's not bad, it's reflection and action and a variety of things that we would do to help people through learning. But character is about habit development. And it's deeply ingrained in who somebody has become. So now we've had this path dependency of a person's entire life experiences that have created habits about who they are, now intersecting with a learning experience on competence and technical side. So we also have good science around what habit development is, what it actually takes to intentionally develop character. And so we're bringing the science of character with the science of habit development into this idea of developing the whole engineer.
And in that development piece, how do instructors often unintentionally shape student character through how they teach, assess, and respond in your experience?
Well, it's fascinating. I think any of us can look back on the most influential teachers we've ever had in whatever level of education. And often it's not the technical competence that they've imparted on us, no matter what the subject matter is. It's something about who that person is and who we become in the presence of that individual. And this is what we call character contagion. And it's happening for better and for worse, because many of us can also recognize we've been in the presence of others. It could be an educator, a parent, friend, a family member who doesn't see the best in us, who doesn't bring out the best in us. And I think in higher education, we've got a responsibility to be thinking about who we are as educators and knowing that there is going to be this character contagion for better and for worse. So the first order of business is to actually understand our own character and how we may be influencing others. And then if we understand that, then we can look around us and we can look at our students and we'd say, my goodness, these are really some bright individuals, but where have they developed the humility or humanity that they need to be able to elevate that judgment and decision making? And, Olga, I want to build on the piece that you talked about around judgment, because there's a piece that we often pick up around character development to exercise choice. And the stronger the character and the competence, the greater the range of choice that we have. And this isn't just about avoiding failure, but it's also about possibility. And so when I think about the students that we're developing and equipping them with the greatest range of choices that they can have about the possibility that they face in their careers, in their lives, in the work that they do, in the innovation that they have, we really want to, bring that technical competency for sure that allows them that range of choice, but also the character along with it. So, Corey, I think this idea for us around we as faculty bringing that character contagion to unlock that potential. Sometimes people call it like the growth mindset of an individual, but look at if we can understand the architecture of character and how it's developed, we now have a more tangible way to approach that growth mindset.
And final question for you, Mary. You teach a highly technical subject, which is strategy. How have you embedded character development into that teaching in a way that strengthens rather than distracts from technical competence?
It's one that I've learned about. I wish I had understood earlier. I treat character and competence like two sides of a DNA strand, and that no matter what I'm doing in the classroom, I'm weaving together those strands. And it happens in two ways. It happens in imagining the nature, for example, around strategy, and how the fact that failures of strategy are rarely failures of competence, but they're largely failures of character. So every time I'm introducing some technical aspect about what's going on or how we think about things strategically, I help the students imagine, so why is it, often use this line, strategy isn't rocket science, so why do people do it so poorly? And it's the fact that this judgment and decision making that has to go alongside strategy is often not there. So one is I marry up the character and competence in the subject that I teach, but also importantly, very intentionally in how I run the classroom. So I often talk about things, really important aspect about character is, people having the courage, for example, to be able to speak at the edge of their thinking. When it comes to strategy and the way that Olga talked about, the ambiguity, the complexity, the uncertainty of the world that we live in, where people feel that they can only rely on knowledge and technical competence and don't speak unless you know something is a major problem, not only in our educational institutions, but in our organizations. So I talk about the capacity for learning of an organization and what it takes for somebody to have the courage to be able to speak at their edge of their thinking, and that as a class and as a collective, how do we draw that out? Now, I just want to reinforce, this isn't a way of having people not become prepared for what it is that we do in the subject matter of teaching strategy, but having come prepared to be able to have that dialogue, what are we going to do in the context of that to work those muscles of humility and humanity and collaboration and courage and accountability, for example, to be able to have the quality of conversation that we need.
As we wrap up, let me briefly bring this together. The Whole Engineer program is designed specifically for engineering faculty who are serious about preparing students for the real demands of professional practice, where judgment, responsibility, and character matter just as much as technical skill. This is not an abstract conversation. It's a highly applied program that results in practical, ready-to-implement teaching interventions, grounded in research and shaped for the realities of engineering education. We intentionally keep this experience small and rigorous. The cohort is limited to 25 participants to ensure depth, dialogue, and meaningful feedback throughout the program. If this conversation resonates with you, if you're thinking about how your teaching shapes not just what students know, but who they become, we invite you to apply. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you in the next cohort of the Whole Engineer program.